I'm going to tell you something that sounds completely ridiculous. Left-footed players aren't more skillful, they aren't more creative, and they aren't born with some secret football gene. Yet somehow they constantly make defenders look stupid. Think about it. Why do players like Messi, Robin, Mahrez, Ozil, Di Maria, and Salah always seem so difficult to read? Why do left-footed players often look smoother, more unpredictable, and more dangerous than everyone else? Most people think it's because they're gifted. But that's not the real reason. The real reason is much stranger, and once you understand it, you'll never watch football the same way again. Let's start with a simple question. Imagine you've spent your entire life fighting right-handed opponents. Every day, every week, every year. Your brain becomes an expert at predicting them. You know their habits, you know their movements, you know their patterns. Now suddenly, someone shows up who does everything backwards. Everything you've learned becomes slightly less effective. Not useless, just slower. And in football, slower is deadly. That's exactly what happens when defenders face elite left-footed players. The average defender spends most of his career facing right-footed opponents. His brain develops expectations. When a player receives the ball, certain movements feel familiar. Certain body shapes predict certain actions. Certain angles suggest certain outcomes. The defender doesn't consciously think about it. His brain does it automatically. Until a left-footed player arrives. Suddenly the picture changes. The angles change. The passing lanes change. The dribbling patterns change. The defender's predictions become less accurate. And football is a game of predictions, not reactions. Predictions. This is why elite defenders seem to know what attackers will do before they do it. They're constantly making calculations. The problem is that left-footed players often disrupt those calculations. And that's where the advantage begins. But here's what's really interesting. The biggest advantage isn't their left foot, it's uncertainty. Most people think great dribblers beat defenders because they're faster. That's rarely true. The best dribblers beat defenders because defenders hesitate, and hesitation creates space. Imagine you're taking an exam. If you know the answer instantly, you respond immediately. But if you're unsure, even for half a second, you slow down. Football works the same way. The moment a defender becomes uncertain, his reactions become slower. His feet become heavier, his decisions become weaker, and elite attackers live inside those moments. They create confusion, they create doubt, they create hesitation. Left-footed players naturally generate more of it. Now, here's where things become even more fascinating. Watch most right-footed players. Many of their movements follow familiar patterns. Defenders have seen them thousands of times. But when elite left-footed players attack, the picture often feels different. The defender's visual references become less reliable. The angles feel unusual. The timing feels unusual. Everything feels slightly uncomfortable. And in football, discomfort is dangerous. This is one reason why certain left-footed players appear almost impossible to defend. Not because defenders don't know what's coming, but because they aren't completely sure. And uncertainty destroys confidence. Think about some of the greatest left-footed players ever. When you watch them, something feels different. The game seems to move at a different rhythm. Their touches look different. Their turns look different. Their body language looks different. It's almost like they're speaking another football language. But here's the truth. What you're seeing isn't magic. You're seeing rarity. And rarity attracts attention. Psychologists have known for years that unusual patterns stand out. Your brain notices things that are different. Football is no different. When a player moves in a way defenders encounter less frequently, he becomes harder to process, harder to predict, harder to stop. And that's exactly why certain left-footed players feel so special. But there's another reason nobody talks about: confidence. Imagine being different from everyone around you. From a young age, left-footed players often learn to adapt. The football world is largely built around right-footed players. Training drills, passing patterns, coaching instructions, Everything naturally favors the majority, so left-footed players often develop creative solutions earlier. They learn how to solve problems differently. They learn how to see spaces differently. They learn how to attack situations differently. And over time, that creates something incredibly valuable. Originality. Not all left-footed players become special. Of course not. But the best ones often develop a style that feels unique. And unique players are difficult players. Now here's the biggest misconception of all. People think defenders struggle against left-footed players because they aren't used to them. That's only part of the story. The real reason is deeper. Elite left-footed players understand leverage. They understand angles. They understand body positioning. And most importantly, they understand perception. They know what defenders expect. Then they weaponize those expectations. This is exactly what the greatest attackers do. They don't beat defenders with movement. They beat defenders with anticipation. The defender thinks one thing, the attacker shows another. The brain commits, the body follows, and the attacker escapes. The move happens so quickly that it feels like magic. But it isn't magic, it's manipulation. The best left-footed players manipulate perception better than almost anyone. That's why they look unpredictable. That's why they look creative. That's why they look impossible to stop. And that's why football fans become obsessed with them. Because deep down, we aren't just watching skill. We're watching uncertainty. We're watching players break expectations. We're watching players force defenders into mistakes. And that's one of the rarest abilities in football. So the next time you watch an elite left-footed player, don't just watch the ball. Watch the defender. Watch the hesitation. Watch the uncertainty. Watch the moment the defender stops being sure. Because that's the exact moment the battle is already over. And that's why left-footed players are so tricky.